Welcome to Two Macs and a Dram with Hector Macbeth and myself, Guy McDonald. Our very special guest today, Jazz Adams, joins us from Halewood. And before we get started, Jazz, today is a very, very momentous day in the history of our times because it's somebody's birthday today. Somebody who specifically grew a beard for the affair because obviously later he'll be in his birthday suit. So he needed a little bit of warmth. We did have to ask very nicely for him not to be in his birthday suit for this because we don't want to break hearts. So happy birthday, Hector Macbeth.
happy, mate. Thanks, guys. I'm just a day older, eh?
Well,
also not a bad way to start your day, tasting some good gins, rums, and vodka, whiskies.
Exactly. What a toast to make. I must just make a point on you say a day older. Jazz, is one thing that's very interesting about Hector. You notice here, I have a dark beard that becomes gray. He is in reverse. He has a gray beard that then has dark. It's going darker as he's getting older. I mean, it's aged in reverse. It's amazing.
I think it's because I'm so negative. You know, when you were in the old days, you got the negative of your camera. It was always the opposite.
Maybe I should try that because I noticed I've started getting a lot more salt in my pepper lately.
Well, with that, let's commence with the tasting for today. And wow, you've given us three phenomenal products here. I was nosing through them yesterday, and they are very unique, but they're also incredibly interesting. Hector, you can pick up.
Yeah, I think Jazz, if you want to start us with Crabbie, obviously Crabbie is a very well-known Scottish name, not that much in South Africa. But I think in modern day, if you had to mention Crabbie, you probably would think a little bit more about sort of alcoholic ginger beer rather than the John Crabbie whiskey from the early 19th century. So I don't know if you want to take us all the way back then or where you want to start the story, Jazz.
Okay, I'll give you a bit of history. John Crabbie, who was the founder of the company, he, funny enough, Hector, or should I say you are very similar to him. You're basically the current day version of this gentleman. John Crabbie was pretty well known in the whiskey industry in the UK, Scotland and England. What he did was he was a purveyor of spirits. He would buy spirits from very well-renowned whiskey houses, and then he would sell it on as his label. So basically it'd be a no-name brand coming out of the distillery. The distillery's name would not be on the packaging. He would label it, but he went out and he selected some of the best whiskies that he could find, and then he redistributed it. So very similar to Hector, where Hector finds these very unique, brilliant brands and he sells them, and he only picks the best of the best. So what we have here is a Crabbie's 12-year-old from a distillery. I'm not allowed to tell you which distillery it actually comes from, but we do have a Scottish single malt here. We have just recently, and when I say recently, 2018, built another distillery because John Crabbie did have his own distillery way back in the 1800s. It went up in flames. We've just built about 2 miles off the original site in Edinburgh, and we are producing our own liquids again. But as you gentlemen would know, to call a whiskey, it has to be aged for 3 years. So obviously we're sitting in that interim period where we're waiting for the whiskeys to age. What we've gone and done here as a company is we've gone and selected whiskeys that we are looking at whiskey flavor profiles that we are looking at having within our own distillery. So here we've got our 12-year-old brilliant liquid. It's new to the South African shores. And when I say new to the South African shores, I could comfortably tell you it hasn't been in South Africa for longer than 6 months. So distribution is still a little bit tight, but I can guarantee you for those proper whiskey connoisseurs, it's not going to be long before it's going to be on their shelves. So to start off with regards to taking a look at the color, as you can see, it's got a very amber looking color, very light gold, with a nose. If you guys want to give it just for the viewers out there, guys, unfortunately it is a Wednesday morning where I'm sitting at, and I'm working, so I won't be drinking, but the other gentlemen are fortunate enough that they can be tasting. on the nose, you're going to get
Crabbie would be very disappointed in you, Jazz.
Listen, if it wasn't for the fact that I went and told my boss that I was actually doing this, so he's going to be looking out for the for the broadcast. If I'd kept it under wraps, I could have snuck in a couple of drinks and gotten away with it. But I know he's going to be watching. So on the nose, you've got an intensely malty nose with a fresh, light, almost like green grass and slightly juicy citrus.
Yeah, for me, it's beautiful citrus note that comes through. It's got this real juicy character that really sings for me personally. I just find that there is that slight hint of peat, but it's very, very much in the background. But it's this lush juice forwardness and a barley forward again, like you say, and sort of green barley to sort of dry barley note, and then it comes back with this lush mint fruit. I'd almost go as far as to say citrus into like a mango sort of character coming through for me.
Yeah. That peatiness for me is being delivered in a kind of forest floor kind of aroma as well, not the usual peat aroma. It's kind of more foresty, flory.
Yeah, I'll go with
yeah, absolutely. I think I agree with you 100% there. So we're getting sort of like forest floor, wet forest floor. You got a damp ash note as well, but very, very sort of as a backbone, keeping all the lush fruit together. But yeah, and adding water that lifts it up even more. You almost get that ozone character coming through, which sort of resonates with the light peat note as well. But lovely, lush fruit note on the nose, definitely.
I noticed with the addition of water that I got a lot more of that grass aroma that they kind of promote on the bottle. That started to really come through. I know they mentioned something along the lines on the palate of grilled orange. Didn't really get that on the palate, but certainly with the addition of water on the nose, it really opened up that grassy nose.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When I tried it, I didn't find the grilled orange so much, but I definitely get that that grassy notes that came through. And what I'll be honest with, for personal taste,
and on the palate for me, it's quite interesting. Yeah,
I'm not a massive smoky peaty whiskey guy. This is a personal choice. It's like personal tastes. This is just lightly peated enough that I can enjoy it, and it hasn't crossed over that line for me. So that's what I find, or what I think about this brand. Is for those guys that are wanting to step out of that or step into the realm of peated whiskeys, but they're not quite there where they're looking at playing with the big, heavy peated whiskey guys yet.
Yeah, I think the peat's been used cleverly. Yeah, the peat is not the star in the show. It's the backbone 100%. That keeps all those luscious notes together, and that reminds you this is still whiskey. You know, otherwise it would be getting too fruity. And so that sort of gives it the structure. So there's the structure line going through that's put together with the light peat levels that are there. But then it's got this lovely way where it goes between fruit and barley, which is exactly what you want a whiskey to do. Obviously, because the peat level is not heavy, you don't have a massive smoky finish, but it's a very well integrated drink. And where you start with this quintessentially whiskey nose that goes into this sort of fruity nose, and just as it's about to lose its focus, it comes back with another sort of wave of whiskey notes again, which is great. And I think the price point is pretty good as well. For a 12-year-old whiskey, I think you under the 500 Rand mark in most retailers.
Yeah. Prices obviously vary bit store to store, but yes, definitely under 500.
I think this might be my new favorite whiskey, but purely because of the suggested cocktail on the back, the Whiskey Mac made for McDonald's. Well, I mean, tell us a bit about that suggested cocktail.
To be honest with you, you actually you know the guy that actually put that cocktail together, mate. Do you remember Devon? He was the one that came to your place when we did the whiskey tasting. Yes. He actually put that together. So there's a good chance he might have actually named it after you. I'll actually have to follow up and find out.
That's phenomenal. That's a birthday present to me. Sorry, Hector. That's
Yeah, own it. Own it.
Absolutely got nothing to do with the relationship of the Crabbies and the McDonald's of 200 years ago. It's all about you, Guy.
Yeah, it's all about Guy. It's always been about Guy. I will say one thing that we've struggled
Fantastic. I'm internationally, you've got an 8-year-old and there's a 26-year-old, I think, or 28-year-old around. Both in South Africa or just the 12 for now?
Currently we've got the 12. The others will be here, and when I speak under correction, but we're looking at the next month or two. So soon.
And
coming
would the
to
8
a
be
bottle
the
store
same
near
flavor
you.
profile?
No, they'll all have their own unique flavor profile. That was the whole idea behind getting the liquids, is that each one will be standalone and not a follow-on. So yeah, the 8 will have its own flavor profile, and then the older one will also yet again go slightly different.
Both single malts, or are there blends on the horizon?
Hector, I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, that's going to be single malts for now, because that's kind of the direction we're going in for the brand. But there will later on, there will be some blends coming into the country, but I've been asked to kind of steer away from that conversation point just for now.
100% point taken. And we know that the Crabbie ginger beer is available in South Africa, but it's non-alcoholic in South Africa.
We've actually got the non-alcoholic and the alcoholic. Unfortunately, it's one of those brands that, like you mentioned early on, Crabbie's is a massive name overseas, in the UK, whereas in South Africa, it's not that well known. And also South Africans having dirty minds like they generally do, the name connotation doesn't do the brand any real justice, where with the whiskies, I think it's a great platform to actually establish that this is a top class brand, name aside. And the Crabbie's ginger ales are brilliant non-alcoholic and alcoholic beverages, and also readily available at quite a few of the retailers. I know quite a few of the liquor cities has them. I think Tony's at Liquor City Claremont has. There's quite a few of the guys do stock it, and it's a brilliant drink.
Fantastic. Okay, then I suppose that's a good intro into the rum, thinking of a dark and stormy, some ginger beer and rum. So let's move over to Colombia and their sort of rum.
Oh yeah, this I'll be honest is one of my newfound favorites within our portfolio. I will honestly say I've always been a tequila adorer. I've always loved a good, well-aged tequila. As a fisherman, I've been known to smack back a couple of captains here and there, but we're now dealing with a rum on a totally different level. The brand obviously is Dictador 12-year-old. I don't know if guys got the bottle there. You can do a quick cameo appearance with the bottle.
Guy, you must speak, otherwise the camera doesn't go to you.
all right. Okay. Yes. So I do have the bottle here, and what's really beautiful about this bottle is how tactile it is as well. It's got an amazing feel to it. What is this effect?
It's a matte black bottle, and it's actually matte on the bottle itself. A couple of things that you might notice, which was, and I'll get into that when it comes to the production and the heritage of the brand. We've had to put on a couple of stickers just because of the import regulations with regards to ABV in South Africa versus the ABV in other countries, where South Africa, for a spirit to be a spirit, it has to be 43%. So we've had to stick some stuff in, but we've got some stunning bottles, and we've got 3 expressions. We've got the 12, the 25, and then the XO. Sorry, the 20, not 25. And all 3 have amazingly stunning bottles. I wish I had the others here with me, but unfortunately I don't. This rum, like Hector mentioned, comes in from Colombia. They are a very niche market distillery. Colombia is also not super renowned for rums. Like that whole Caribbean area is rum area, but if you think about rums, you're normally thinking about Jamaican, Caribbean, and then Brazil, those kind of guys. But we've got a brilliant rum here. as you can see on there, it's actually a 12-year. There's very few rums in South Africa that are actually aged for 12 years, and it's aged using the Solera system. For the layman, it can be a little bit complicated when you actually try and read up, but basically it's just using barrels, and each year there's a certain amount of liquid that actually gets lost, written off as the angel share due to evaporation. What they do is at the end of every aging year, they will take that year's barrels and they will top them all up with that year's liquid. So hypothetically, you've got 10 barrels, they'll use one of those 10 barrels to top up whatever's been lost during that year, and then follow the procedure going on for 12 years. So it's a pretty high labor intensive aging process that has to be done every year, and every year it's done by hand. So it's definitely a skill, a master skill that's required.
As you mentioned, Colombia not
Absolutely,
generally
and I think,
known for rum, but I mean, obviously coffee and cocaine. But
Yeah.
this rum is certainly it's got such a depth on the nose. I likened it to what I would imagine is the scent of an antique pirate boot, but in a nice way.
Guy, to me, this rum, and when I first got to taste it and smell it, yes, you can pick up it's a rum straight away, but the characteristics behind this lends itself almost to a really well-aged whiskey. If you take a look at the color, the notes, because there's the liquid that you've got there, and I'm not sure if you want to hold the glass up to the camera so that
There's the color there.
But speak when you do it.
That dark amber color, that is purely aging process. There's no colorant caramel added to these rums, and it takes an exceptionally long time to kind of achieve that coloration with regards to aging. The aging happens in bourbon barrels, port, as well as sherry. So that's also where there's a darker color, and that rich caramel nose and flavor profile will come through that you actually pick up on there. If you guys want to just give me a talk through on what you're picking up on your nose and palate there.
Yeah, I think the important thing to take note of as well, when looking at this rum in particular, is that number one, they use the honey. They don't use molasses as a byproduct. They actually use the sugarcane juice itself. And that's distilled in both pot still and column still, and then blended before being put into wooden barrels. And then obviously through the Solera process, if your youngest rum is going to be 12 years old, that means we'll have some rums here that started 12 years before the youngest one. So they should theoretically be older too.
Just to clarify, Hector, because I actually asked this question with the brand manager, the global brand manager, because there is that Solera system. They've actually changed the system where they are not mixing the ages. So what you've got in here is literally only a 12-year-old.
Okay.
So they're not mixing ages. They're literally year one. They take whatever's been lost in the barrels from angel share. They'll top it up with the same year's liquid until they've got full barrels. So they'll keep on doing that. It's not a case of they take year one and top it up into year two. It is literally they use the same year continuously. Because
they're basically shrinking their
100%.
So they're shrinking their barrels. So if they started with 20, they'll end with 8.
That's correct. That's also what makes this such a unique brand, because of the loss. It is a, what's the word? Boutique brand.
Sure.
You'll see with the prices, then they're not the most cost-effective rums on the market, but you're paying for quality. You're paying for what you get. The brands on a global level are used in a premium deluxe space. There are like high-end boutique stores in the US that will buy certain barrels of this just purely so that they could actually have it as their gifting to their high-end customers. Some of the rums within the Dictador portfolio, they come in at tens of thousands of rands for the single barrels and things like that. So yeah.
Can I ask?
It's an incredible rum, man.
Can I ask the question that possibly most of our viewers will be wondering is, so how does that make economic sense? Why do they choose to do their Solera system the way they do? And second to that is that a lot of people have obviously that association that if you've got multiple age statements in one, it makes it even better than just the same building. So
it was literally because of that. They wanted to say, when you look at this, it's a 12-year-old. That's it. A lot of the times when you've got mixed age statements, although the youngest, the youngest could be 12 and then the oldest could be whatever, but also the percentage of what's actually in there. Nobody can tell you, say hypothetically, there's the eldest rum in a different Solera system is 50 years old. There could be 2 drops of that 50-year-old in your bottle. You as a consumer are not aware of what the actual ratio is between the different ages. Looking at this bottle, you know you've got 750 mils of 12-year-old. When you buy the 20-year-old, you've got 750 mils of straight out 20-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah, so it does make sense that what they're saying is they're doing their aging with sort of recasking. I mean, I think you'll find that happens in a lot of different places. I mean, we in ourselves in our whiskey business, we do that often because the bigger oxidation that takes place it ages your whiskey too fast sometimes. So you want to slow that down. So you'll re-vat them. So you'll take 7 vats and that are all at 80% levels and re-vat them down back to 5 full barrels rather, so that you have less oxidation. So therefore the spirit has more of a chance of maturing without being oxidized. Unless you're looking for oxidation, which is obviously why the Solera system is used in making sherry, because they actually want the oxidation so that the floor can form. So we don't want the oxidation, so that's why we Solera and recasting whiskey and rums all the time to get maximum wood contact out of spirit with less oxidation as possible. So that's obviously why. It's an incredible nose. It reminds you immediately of a coffee liqueur. So it speaks 100%. To you immediately when you pick it up. I mean, I'm always thinking sort of a shot of Kahlua has been added in there on the sneak kind of thing. But beautiful, clean spirit, rich, velvety, silky palate. Amazing, absolutely amazing.
It literally, I gave this to a couple of friends of mine that are rum drinkers, but I'm not knocking it. They are the rum and coke brand guys, and there's some brilliant rum and coke brands out there, but when they experienced this, it blew their head off. They didn't realize that there were rums out there like this, where you can have these really rich, warming notes. You can have the caramel, the coffee, the honey. It's just really, really mind-blowing, especially go ahead, Guy.
It is absolutely mind-blowing. It is, and on the palate, that beautiful kind of hint of coffee and that cherry tobacco, it's unbelievable. And this is something I'm going to have to hide from my wife, because we've done a premium rum before, not nearly as premium as this, and I came home to find her mixing it with Coca-Cola. So yeah,
I'm not gonna don't judge me here, but I tried it with Coke just purely as a experiment, and it was the worst mistake I could have made. It tasted horrendous. This rum is definitely not meant to be going with Coke. I was hard pressed to have it with anything outside. I tried it with lime on the rocks. Even the lime it didn't play well for me. For me, it's neat or on the rocks. I would even go so far as doing it almost like a cognac, where you've heated up the glass so you get those aromas. And you mentioned early on, it smelled or reminded you of or imagery of a pirate's cabin. To me, this is leather, wood. This would tie in so well with a nice cigar. Oh yeah.
And I see it's won a lot of awards, eh?
Yeah, listen, like I said, the brand itself is very new to South Africa, but globally it is a very well-renowned distillery, and yet again, it is a boutique distillery that deals with high-end rums and high-end consumers. They are, and I'll be lying to you if I mentioned the names now, but there's American rappers and stuff that buy directly from the distillery so that they can get their own single casks and things like that. So we're dealing with premium here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I must say, I'm so glad to see South Africa's finally twigging onto the premium rum category. We've had a few rums in and out, but nothing to this sort of caliber. And it is growing, and it's so good to see that sort of grow. I mean, I think gin did kind of throw a little bit in there. But the thing that amazes me about rum is that when you start looking at this quality rum, it's exactly the same as any single malt whiskey that you could find in the world,
100%.
or aged tequilas. But never underestimate the versatility of having sugar as your backbone, because you can seriously mix this rum. And I've experimented with this rum quite a lot. Your Crabbie's ginger beer and some lime and a little bit of grapefruit, let me tell you, is a wicked drink. It really is.
That sounds good. I think the ginger beer sounds like it would go really well. Those spicy flavor profiles. Yet again, like I said, I tried, and this was during lockdown, so it was desperation because I happened to have the Dictador at home. So I went and got some Coke because I was out of brandy and stuff, and I thought, okay, cool, let me just give it a bash. I took two sips, and I was like, yeah, this is not working. Binned it, and then I was drinking it neat for the rest of lockdown.
Yeah, look,
not a bad rum to have for lockdown.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely scored on that.
Sure.
Look, I definitely think that rum this is a sipping rum. You can absolutely enjoy it that way. But wow, as a cocktail, it's just such a good base. And I mean, with that ginger beer, a bit of lime, bit of grapefruit, just to give it a little bit more bitterness, and then maybe even sort of spice it up with smoked cinnamon. So burn cinnamon and capture that smoke in the glass and expose it to a bit. Because the minute I added water, I got this interesting wet ash note that came through. It's obviously from the barrel itself where we're getting a bit of wood smoke that's giving us that wet ash note. Yeah, that just tells me this is going to love a bit of smoke in it as well. Definitely an interesting one.
Like I said, the barrels that are used, it's 70% bourbon. We got 15% sherry and 15% port. So there's those smoky notes that you're picking up was obviously the ex-bourbon casks that have been charred inside, obviously. Yeah. So that's where you're getting those smoky notes. But I'm definitely looking forward to playing around, and it's been a little bit manic getting back into trade now, so I haven't had playtime. But I want to play with the rum and just try and play around with some of the old-fashioned or the classics. So try Negroni style stuff or the old-fashioned cocktail. Just see how well the rum plays in that field, because I definitely think it's got a space for those older classic cocktails where you're not mixing it with too much. You're just playing with subtle hints of, say, bitters or spices, just to play around or harmonize with those flavor profiles.
And I must say, like, it has a lovely coffee liqueur note. So you could almost, wherever sort of any recipe that previously would have had Kahlua in it, I think you could sort of start to substitute it when you're looking for a less sweet, more spirit forward, but still that same coffee vibe. I think this would also pick up really well inside there. It's versatile and it's fantastic.
I'm not going to lie. I was even using it in cooking during lockdown. I was doing, while everybody else was making pineapple beer, I was actually eating grilled pineapples. So I was actually flambeing the pineapples with the rum, and that just gave it a beautiful, beautiful taste.
With all the suggestion of mixes, how much does a bottle retail for, so I can decide whether I'm going to drink this?
Okay, for the 12-year-old, you are looking at just shy of $700, if I'm not mistaken. It's between $650 and $700. The 20-year-old is just over $700, and then we've got the XO, which is now I'd be lying to you if I gave you an exact number. We retail or we supply to retailers at $1,000, so you're looking comfortably 1,2, depending on their markups. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, at that price, I'm not going to be mixing it.
That's good value.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's great value. Great value.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, that 20 is very, very good value then at 700 Rand. I mean, that's incredible price for 20-year-old rum. So no, that's great. Like I say, I think rum's moment was coming and coming, and I think gin sort of threw the apple cart over, just as sort of we started to get a bit of impetus with rum, then gin just exploded. So I suppose that's a good time to jump on that Irish gin bandwagon with some Whitley Neal.
Yeah, we can, and both you gents know, like this is a passion child of mine. Whitley Neal was one of the reasons I joined the company, or why I was brought into the company as a brand ambassador back in the day. When we only had one expression, we now have 7 expressions in the country, and quite a lot more globally. Raspberry was the 4th expression that's come into the country, and of the previous 3, it was the one expression that wasn't actually tied into South Africa, because obviously raspberry is not very synonymous with Africa or South Africa. The heritage behind the brand ties into Johnny Neal, who's the master distiller, his family. Part of his family is originally from Scotland, so this is his ode to the balance of his family. You're looking at it's the makeup of the gin, or the DNA of it, is very similar to the original bottle, which is our black bottle, where the black bottle has 9 ingredients, with the 2 key ingredients being the Cape gooseberry and the baobab, which is the ode to the African heritage. This one, those 2 key ingredients have been taken out, and then raspberry has been put in place there. This gin, out of our current Whitley Neal portfolio, of what's in the market, I would comfortably say is the best party pleaser out of the range. You've got something that you pick up the raspberry straight off the bat on the nose. It lends itself to thinking it's a sweet gin, but unfortunately it's not, because gins aren't allowed to have sugar in and still be called gins in this country. So you're looking at 43% ABV, full strength gin, but with raspberry notes.
The wonderful thing about this gin, nosing it last night, and again this morning to some extent, but obviously now I've got raspberry full on in my head. But before I even read the bottle and took note of what it was supposed to be, the aroma was a beautiful lady's perfume, a fragrance, but a very subdued upper class kind of fragrance, if you know what I mean.
So subtle, not like granny scary, just a very I get it.
Restrained, but luxury, and I think that might be quite enticing, especially to women.
Yeah, to be honest, this is not a gin expression that I would recommend to your dedicated London dry drinkers. It was never designed for that particular market. Not to say that they couldn't have one or two, but I feel anybody that is accustomed to a hard London dry 51% juniper content gin would probably not have more than one of the raspberries. But for somebody that's getting into the gin market or wants to play around with different flavor profiles, this is the perfect gin to mix or just have simple serves.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, the minute I noticed this, it was so interesting. Like, if you took the sickly sweetness away from Chambord, and just so almost if you took Chambord and distilled it, and this would be the outcome of that experiment. There's no juniper at all on the nose. It's all about that luxury raspberry character that comes through, without 100%. That sickly sweetness that Chambord has. So again, I see this as being a sort of a great crutch to certain things where you would normally be introducing Chambord, but you don't want to go into that sweet level again, but you really want to bring in that luxury sort of raspberry character. And raspberry by nature have this uncanny way of being exceptionally creamy when in alcohol. They just turn to this lovely, lush creaminess. So, I mean, yeah, I could sip this just neat the whole day.
I'm not gonna lie,
maybe, and that's it.
I've been sipping it neat as well. I love it. And like you said, when I first smelt, I was a little bit concerned. The very first time the bottle was presented to me and I picked up that raspberry notes, like you said, that Chambord thing, you think sweetness. So as you're about to take that sip, your brain is telling you sweet, 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 sweet. It hits the palate and there's no sweetness. So it's a bit of a mind trip, and very, very luxurious on the palate, and easily mixable, easily drinkable, and also can be drunk, like you said, just a little bit of ice and a squeeze of lime if you really felt like it.
So you suggested to us that one of your other brands in the stable would be the Perfect Serve.
Yeah, Lab and Watt. That is our high-end tonic, which is imported from the Lake District in the UK. We have 4 different flavor profiles on that. We've got the original, cucumber, basil, and then hibiscus. But I opted for the original just so that it doesn't hide any of the flavor profiles on the raspberry. Like I said, the raspberry is highly mixable. You could have that with different berry juices. You could have it with tonic. You could have it with soda. Some people are even drinking it with lemonade. So it's highly mixable. But for this particular tasting, I wanted you to have it just neat. If you really wanted to splash out for the misses, you could go buy yourself a punnet of raspberries or mixed berries and toss it in there, and it would definitely not hurt. But like I said, with the flavor profile and the nose on that raspberry, I didn't want to complicate it with
can I just quickly take this opportunity to also congratulate whoever's behind this brand, the hibiscus, and it was thanks to Hector. He introduced me to your tonics. The hibiscus I drink out the bottle. I don't even mix it with anything. It is a superb tonic on its own, and the quality of this is superior to anything I've tasted before. Well done to whoever.
We went above and beyond when it came to making this brand. We use natural quinine in the product. We also use agave sugars. So we're using sugars from the agave plant, which is where tequila comes from. Agave sugars just have a lower glycemic index, so not quite as bad for you as normal cane sugar. And we also try to make sure that the quinine, which is that bitterness that you pick up on tonics, wasn't overpowering. Because that's what puts quite a few people off gin and tonics, is actually not the taste of the gin itself. It's actually the tonics. And I myself, 9 out of 10 times, I drink my gins with soda for that exact purpose, unless I can get a tonic that is slightly lighter in the quinine profiles.
That's what I found with this tonic, is that it's incredibly smooth as it goes in, and then right at the back you get that little quinine bite, but it's not all in your mouth attacking everything. So
100%.
Absolutely, and that's why it mixes so well as well, because it sort of, it's like watching a TV that's a bit dull, and then someone sort of changes the setting and you get full HD, you know, and it just brings sharp the brightness out. You know, it just sharpens all the lines and everything. And I've mixed it now with the raspberry, and it's incredible. It adds enough sweetness that you're not ending up with sort of like a dry initial taste. So it's a nice, easy, soluble, sort of viscose note. But then because it's just a little bit sweet, it gives you this beautiful dry finish. So it's like drinking a really expensive dry French wine or champagne, because of the effervescence there as well, because it has a lovely bit of effervescence, but a gentle bouquet on it. So great mix. I see in the actual Halewood handbook that they do suggest the basil lamb and what goes well with it, and I think that would work amazingly well as well. Or fresh basil, I would imagine.
Yeah,
good old-fashioned basil smash, you know.
Exactly. But like I said, the reason I opted for the original on this one was purely just to showcase how easy drinking the raspberry would be. I've found, and don't get me wrong, we've got some great tonics and there's great gins out there. But for those consumers that are just getting into category, because of the marketing that gets done in a lot of venues as to how to serve gins, a lot of the times it's 10,000 ingredients in a glass, and the actual characteristics of what you're trying to get the consumer to buy into is lost. The protea or the hibiscus tonic that Guy was talking about early on also has so many different applications that you could use it for. The basil, like you said, goes perfectly with us as what would normally be a basil smash. There's some great serves out there. The cucumber also has a a great space to play in. So yeah, the tonics are amazing, and not really, if you're going to be drinking a good gin, and I'm not talking about just our gins or our mixes, if you're going to be spending a bit of money on a good gin, I would highly recommend that you go and do a little bit of homework and spend a bit of money on getting a decent quality tonic.
Agreed.
It's pointless getting a good gin and you go and kill it with a rubbish tonic.
I'm 100% behind that notion as well. And that's why I always try to push lamb and water on people, because, you know, I don't have to do anything other than put it in your hand and say, there we go, you go taste that. You know, I don't have to explain anything to anybody. I just say, look, the main sort of, from a health point of view, is it's rather agave sugar than cane sugar. It's still sugar at the end of the day, so you still got to watch your consumption.
Yeah. But
give it a bash, and I've yet to have anyone come back to me and say, well, that was a complete waste of time. In fact, everyone, quite the opposite. Everyone goes, wow, 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 wow. So a beautiful thing. But the same with the Whitley Neal range. I've never had anybody, I mean, the cucumber one is funny. I mean, we did it 3 years in a row at Neisner show. And the first year, it was like, no one was interested at all. But year 2, it was #1 drank. Of the range again. So it varies from time to time. And I think, thinking back on it, I think the time where the cucumber did really well was hotter than the time when it wasn't. So I think the minute that heat starts to climb up, then that cucumber seems to make more sense in summer.
100%. I'll use myself again as an example. Out of our current range, and yet again, it's a personal thing, the cucumber is my least favorite, just because I'm not a massive cucumber fan. But when we start hitting those 35, 36 degree days, let me tell you, I easily kill somebody for a Whitley Neal cucumber, because that crispness and that freshness just cools you down. It's, can't be beat.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting thing that very few people know with cucumber. We always pair it with salmon. Whenever we're doing whiskey tastings and we're using salmon, we put cucumber in because it noses the closest to salmon, actually. But it brings the freshness to this heavy, oily fish, and the two combine, and you just get an explosion of flavor. And then if you sort of complement that with a malt whiskey, then you just, and I reckon the Crabbies would work really well there. So that's a good experiment for you to try.
Once I've finished my experimenting, I'll grab you and Guy together, and we can do a tasting and a pairing session.
That sounds
perfect. Like a lot of fun.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share on any of the brands that you feel you haven't had a chance to communicate?
No, that's basically it. It's just like the brands are so amazing from an artisanal space. And it's one thing as a company that we really pride ourselves on, and it's one of our key goals is to find these artisanal brands, bring them into the light, showcase them for what they are. So yeah, it's, guys, just go out there, try them. If you want tastings and things like that, get hold of Guy, get hold of Hector. We can make a plan. There was supposed to be a rum awards just pre-COVID where we would have entered, but unfortunately COVID hit and that's been cancelled. But we're definitely looking forward to having our rums at a couple of festivals or markets and things, so we can get consumers tasting the liquid and excited about the new rum category where we're dealing with premium rums.
Awesome.
Cool, guys.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jazz, for your time this morning. It's a good way to start a birthday, drinking 3 quality spirits with some good mates. And so, yeah, thanks a lot for that.
And until next time, we say, Slàinte mhath.
Slàinte mhath. Cheers.